Marcus Chen stared at the auction display with tired eyes. 3 months of deep space freight runs had left him exhausted, but he needed the credits. The Galactic trade station buzzed with activity as hundreds of species conducted their business. Humans were still new to this vast cosmic marketplace, barely tolerated by most alien races who saw them as primitive upstarts. The auction house reeked of desperation and greed. Marcus watched as various alien specimens were paraded across the stage like livestock. Slavery was technically illegal in the Galactic Federation, but indentured servitude and companion contracts provided convenient loopholes that everyone pretended didn't exist. "Next lot," announced the Krillian auctioneer, his multiple eyes scanning the crowd. "A Zerathi female, mute. Previous owner claims vocal cords damaged beyond repair, still capable of basic labor tasks." Marcus looked up from his data pad. The creature being led onto the stage made his breath catch. She was humanoid but clearly alien, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the harsh lighting. Her large dark eyes held an intelligence that contradicted the auctioneer's dismissive tone. Long silver hair cascaded down her back, and despite the crude restraints around her wrists, she carried herself with dignity. The Zerathi were known throughout the galaxy as one of the most advanced species. Their technology was centuries ahead of most civilizations, their culture rich with art and philosophy. What was one of them doing in a slave auction? "Starting bid 500 credits, the auctioneer called out. Marcus frowned. For a Zerathi, even a damaged one, that was insultingly low. Something wasn't right. He studied the female more carefully. She showed no signs of injury or illness. Her movements were fluid and graceful. If anything, she looked more like a captured princess than a broken slave. A few half-hearted bids came from the crowd. Most buyers seemed uninterested in a mute alien, no matter how exotic. Marcus watched as her price slowly climbed to 800 credits. Still far below what any Zerathi should cost. "Going once at 800, the auctioneer announced with obvious disappointment. Marcus made a decision he couldn't fully explain. Maybe it was the way she held her head high despite her circumstances. Maybe it was his human instinct to help the underdog. Or maybe it was something deeper. A connection he felt when their eyes met across the crowded auction house. 1,000 credits, Marcus called out, his voice carrying over the crowd. Several alien heads turned to stare at him. Humans didn't typically participate in these auctions. They were too new, too poor, too weak to afford quality slaves. The auctioneer's eyes widened slightly before he regained his composure. 1,000 from the human. "Any other bids?" Silence filled the auction house. Marcus could feel disapproving stares from various alien species. A Thraxian merchant nearby made a disgusted clicking sound with his mandibles. Sold to the human for 1,000 credits. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself in a processing room with his unexpected purchase. The Zerathi female sat quietly on a metal bench while a bored clerk processed the paperwork. Her restraints had been removed, but she made no attempt to flee. "Standard companion contract," the clerk, a reptilian saurian, explained without looking up. "Term of 5 galactic standard years. She's your responsibility now, human. Property damage, medical bills, legal issues, all yours." Marcus nodded absently, still studying the alien woman. Up close, she was even more striking. Her skin had an almost luminescent quality, and her features were delicately beautiful in a way that transcended species. But it was her eyes that captivated him. They held depths of intelligence and sadness that spoke of someone who had lost everything. "What's your name?" Marcus asked gently once they were alone. She looked at him with those large dark eyes but remained silent. The previous owner's records claimed she was mute, but Marcus had his doubts. There was something about the way she carried herself that suggested the silence was chosen, not forced. "I'm Marcus," he continued. "I know this situation isn't ideal, but I want you to know I didn't buy you to be a slave. I have a small cargo ship, and I could use help with navigation and systems management. It would be more like a partnership." For the first time, something flickered in her expression. Surprise, perhaps, or cautious hope, but still she said nothing. The walk to Marcus's ship, the Wanderer, took them through the station's commercial district. Marcus noticed how other beings stared at them, some with curiosity, others with contempt. Humans were barely accepted in galactic society, and here he was with a Zerathi companion. It would definitely draw attention. The Wanderer was a modest freight vessel, old but well-maintained. Marcus had inherited it from his uncle and spent years learning every system, every quirk. It wasn't much, but it was home. "Your quarters are here," Marcus said, showing her to a small but comfortable cabin. "I know it's not much, but it's private. You can lock the door if you want. I won't disturb you unless there's an emergency." She explored the small space with careful movements, running her fingers over the surfaces as if memorizing them. When she turned back to him, there was something almost like gratitude in her expression. "I'll be in the cockpit if you need anything," Marcus said. "We're scheduled to leave in 6 hours. First stop is the Kepler mining colonies, about 2 weeks in hyperspace." As he turned to leave, he thought he heard something, a soft sound barely audible. When he looked back, she was standing by the small porthole staring out at the stars. But her lips hadn't moved, and he convinced himself he'd imagined it. That night, as the Wanderer prepared for departure, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd gotten himself into something far more complicated than a simple companion contract. The woman, he still didn't know her name, was clearly more than she appeared to be. The question was, what had happened to her and why was she pretending to be mute? In the depths of space, with only the hum of engines for company, Marcus Chen was about to discover that some purchases change your life in ways you never could have imagined. And sometimes, the most valuable things come disguised as bargains that seem too good to be true. 2 days into their journey to the Kepler mining colonies, Marcus began to notice things. Small things that didn't match the profile of a damaged slave. The Zarathi woman moved through his ship with an efficiency that spoke of advanced technical knowledge. When he worked on routine maintenance, he caught her watching from doorways, her eyes tracking his movements with the focus of someone who understood exactly what he was doing. More than understood, someone who could probably do it better. She kept to herself mostly, spending hours in her quarters or standing by observation windows, staring into the vast emptiness of hyperspace. But Marcus noticed she was always clean, always composed. Her movements were precise and graceful, lacking any sign of the broken spirit he'd expected from a long-term slave. On the 3rd day, Marcus was struggling with a stubborn navigation calibration when he sensed movement behind him. The woman had approached silently, stopping just behind his chair. When he turned, she was looking at his display with obvious interest. "This is tricky," Marcus said, gesturing at the screen. "The hyperdrive has been acting up lately. Sometimes the nav computer can't sync with the gravitational mapping array." She tilted her head slightly, studying the readout. Then, to Marcus's surprise, she pointed at a specific line of code and made a subtle gesture, a quick movement of her finger that suggested deletion. Marcus looked closer at what she'd indicated. It was a redundant protocol loop that shouldn't have been there. He made the change and immediately the navigation display stabilized. "How did you—" Marcus began, then stopped. She was already backing away, her expression neutral again. But something had shifted between them. For just a moment, her mask had slipped, revealing the brilliant mind beneath. Over the next few days, these small interactions became more frequent, a gesture here, a pointed look there. She never spoke, but she was clearly communicating. Marcus began to suspect that her muteness wasn't medical at all. It was deliberate. The breakthrough came during their first week in hyperspace. Marcus was in the engine bay performing routine maintenance when a plasma conduit ruptured. Superheated gas began venting into the compartment and the emergency systems failed to activate. Within minutes, the temperature would reach lethal levels. Marcus frantically worked to shut down the plasma flow manually, but the control interface was located near the rupture. Every time he approached, the intense heat forced him back. Sweat poured down his face as he realized he might have to abandon the engine bay and hope the ship's hull could contain the damage. Then she was there. The Zarathi woman pushed past him with determination. Before Marcus could stop her, she plunged into the wall of heat surrounding the control panel. Her hands moved over the interface with impossible speed and precision, fingers dancing across controls in complex sequences that Marcus had never seen before. The plasma flow stopped. Emergency ventilation kicked in. Temperature sensors showed the compartment rapidly cooling. Marcus stared at her in shock. She had not only fixed the problem, she had done it using advanced Zarathi engineering techniques that weren't even in his ship's manual. Her skin was flushed from the heat, but she showed no signs of injury. "That was impossible," Marcus said quietly. "Those controls aren't programmed for that kind of emergency override." "How did you—" She looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before, Not just intelligence, but the deep knowledge that comes with years of advanced training. This was no ordinary Zarathi, and definitely not a broken slave. "You're not mute," Marcus said. It wasn't a question. She held his gaze steadily, but said nothing. "And you're not just any Zarathi, are you? The way you handled those controls, the engineering knowledge, you're someone important." Still silence, but Marcus could see the conflict in her expression, trust warring with caution. That evening, Marcus made dinner for both of them, a simple meal of synthesized proteins and vegetables from the ship's stores. They ate in the small galley in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now, thoughtful rather than empty. "I've been thinking," Marcus said as he cleaned up, "about why a highly skilled Zarathi engineer would end up in a slave auction, pretending to be mute." She watched him carefully. Maybe someone was hunting her. Someone powerful enough that speaking up, revealing who she really was, would be more dangerous than pretending to be damaged goods. Maybe she needed to disappear completely. Marcus sat down across from her. "If that's true, then you're probably safer with a nobody human freight pilot than you would be almost anywhere else in the galaxy. Humans are so far beneath most species' notice that we're practically invisible." For the first time since he'd bought her, she leaned forward slightly, actually engaging with what he was saying. "I want you to know," Marcus continued, "that whatever brought you to that auction, whatever you're running from, I'm not going to betray you, and I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do." She studied his face for a long time, as if trying to read his soul. Then slowly she nodded. It wasn't much, but it was the first real acknowledgement that she understood and possibly even trusted him. Later that night, Marcus was awakened by a sound he'd never heard before on his ship. Music. Haunting. Beautiful music that seemed to come from the air itself. He followed the sound to the observation deck and found her there, sitting cross-legged on the floor. She was humming. Not speaking, but making sound for the first time since he'd known her. The melody was complex and alien, yet somehow familiar. It spoke of loss and longing, of worlds left behind and futures uncertain. Marcus stood in the doorway, afraid to interrupt. The music washed over him, filling the small space with beauty and sadness in equal measure. When the song ended, she opened her eyes and saw him standing there. For a moment, neither moved. Then she lifted her head slightly and whispered a single word, so soft he almost missed it. "Lyra." Her name. She had told him her name. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Whatever was happening between them, whatever trust was slowly building, it was just the beginning, and he had the distinct feeling that before this journey was over, he was going to discover that picking up a mysterious Zarathi at a slave auction was either the best decision he'd ever made or the most dangerous. The Kepler mining colonies existed on the edge of civilized space, where desperate people carved lives from asteroid rock and corporate oversight was light. Marcus had delivered supplies here dozens of times, but never with a passenger who might be more valuable than his entire ship. Lyra, he could finally think of her by name, had grown more communicative during their 2-week journey. Not with words, but with gestures, expressions, and occasional hummed melodies that seemed to convey more meaning than most conversations. She had also begun helping with ship operations, her advanced knowledge making routine tasks effortlessly efficient. As they approached the Kepler 7 station, Marcus noticed Lyra's behavior change. She became more alert, more cautious. When he asked if something was wrong, she simply shook her head, but her eyes held worry. The docking procedure went smoothly. Marcus had cargo to deliver and needed to take on supplies for the next run. It should have been routine. But as they powered down the ship's systems, Lyra grabbed his arm with surprising strength. She pointed to the docking bay's security monitors, then made a cutting motion across her throat. A warning. Marcus looked at the screens more carefully. The usual mix of miners, traders, and station personnel moved about the bay. But now that Lyra had directed his attention, he noticed them. Figures in dark clothing who moved with military precision, their eyes scanning everything and everyone. "Bounty hunters?" Marcus whispered. Lyra nodded grimly. Then she did something that shocked him. She spoke, her voice clear and musical despite weeks of silence. "They're not looking for me specifically," she said in accented but perfect standard. "But they're scanning for Zarathi biosignatures. My people have enemies who pay well for information." Marcus stared at her. "Your people? What aren't you telling me?" Before she could answer, Marcus's comm system crackled to life. Attention vessel Wanderer, this is station security. Prepare for routine inspection. Marcus and Lyra exchanged glances. There was nothing routine about this. Stay here, Marcus said. I'll handle them, but Lyra shook her head. If they scan the ship, they'll find my biosignature anyway. And if they find evidence of a Zarathi on board without seeing one, they'll tear your ship apart looking. She was right. Marcus felt his heart racing as he considered their options. There's another way, Lyra continued. But you have to trust me completely. What do you mean? Instead of answering, Lyra moved to the ship's main computer console. Her fingers flew over the interface with incredible speed, accessing systems Marcus didn't even know his ship had. Your ship is more advanced than you realize, she explained as she worked. Human engineers are excellent at practical applications, but you don't always understand the full potential of the technology you use. The main display lit up with schematics Marcus had never seen before. His ship's hull, but with additional systems highlighted in blue. Stealth capabilities? Marcus asked in amazement. Passive ones, Lyra confirmed. Your ship can mask its energy signature and become nearly invisible to most scanners. It was probably a modification made by your uncle without his knowledge. Sometimes salvaged parts come with hidden surprises. Her fingers continued dancing over the controls. But activating these systems requires precise knowledge of Zarathi quantum mechanics. Knowledge that most species don't possess. Including humans, Marcus said. Including most humans, she corrected. But you're different, Marcus. You see patterns others miss. You understand systems intuitively. I've been watching you work. The inspection team was at the airlock now. Marcus could hear them outside. There's something else, Lyra said quickly. If we do this, if I reveal this much of my knowledge, you'll become a target too. Knowing advanced Zarathi technology makes you valuable to some very dangerous people. Marcus looked at her. This mysterious woman who had trusted him with her name, her voice, and now perhaps her life. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. Do it, he said. Lyra's hands moved in a complex sequence over the controls. The ship's hull seemed to shimmer for a moment, and then everything went quiet. Even the background hum of the life support systems became muted. Open the airlock, she whispered. Act normal. Marcus activated the airlock, and 3 figures in security uniforms entered. But Marcus could see they weren't regular station security. Their equipment was too advanced, their movements too coordinated. Professional hunters, just as Lyra had suspected. Routine inspection, their leader announced, though his eyes were already scanning every surface with predatory intensity. Of course, Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Cargo manifest is on the table there. While the leader reviewed his paperwork, the other 2 moved through the ship with handheld scanners. Marcus watched their progress on the internal monitors, his heart pounding as they approached Lyra's quarters. She was standing in the middle of the room, completely visible, but somehow, impossibly, the scanner showed nothing. Biosignature readings? The leader asked without looking up. 1 human male confirmed, came the reply. No other life forms detected. Marcus fought to keep the amazement off his face. Lyra caught his eye and pressed a finger to her lips with the slightest smile. The inspection continued for 20 minutes. They checked cargo holds, examined systems, even tested the air for trace chemicals. But their equipment consistently failed to detect any sign of Lyra's presence. Finally, they prepared to leave. But at the last moment, the leader turned back to Marcus. You're new to this route, he said. It wasn't a question. First time to Kepler, Marcus confirmed. Word of advice, the hunter said quietly. These mining colonies attract unusual cargo sometimes, people trying to disappear. If you ever come across anything valuable, anything that might interest collectors, remember that discretion can be very profitable. He handed Marcus a contact card. Should you ever need to reach me? After they left, Marcus and Lyra sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Finally, Marcus looked at the card. Karn Thek's independent recovery specialist. The name meant nothing to him, but Lyra's sharp intake of breath suggested she recognized it. Who is he? Marcus asked. Someone who hunts my people for sport, Lyra said quietly, and now he knows your face. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What have I gotten myself into? Something larger than either of us intended, Lyra admitted. Marcus, there are things about my people, about why I was at that auction that you need to know. But not here. Not where we might be overheard. Back to deep space then, Marcus said. We'll finish this cargo run and find somewhere safe to talk. As they prepared to depart Kepler 7, Marcus realized his simple life as a freight pilot was over. Whatever Lyra's real story was, whatever had put her in that slave auction, he was now part of it. And judging by the look in Karn Thex's eyes, it was going to be dangerous. But as he watched Lyra efficiently prepare their departure, her true capabilities now partially revealed, Marcus also felt something he hadn't experienced in years: excitement. For the first time since inheriting his uncle's ship, he was part of something bigger than routine cargo runs, even if it might get him killed. The station's corridors echoed with their footsteps as Marcus and Zara moved deeper into the derelict structure. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, and the air recyclers hummed with the strain of keeping the atmosphere breathable. Life signs are concentrated in Section C, Marcus reported, checking his scanner. But the main route is blocked by debris from what looks like an explosion. Zara paused at a junction, studying the station's layout through fresh eyes. This is a research facility, not a commercial station. Look at these corridors, the way they're designed. Everything leads to a central core. What kind of research? Marcus asked, noting the unusual architecture. Xenobiology, I think. These chambers, she pointed to sealed rooms along the corridor. They're designed for containing different atmospheric types. This station was built to study life forms from multiple worlds. As they approached Section C, they began to hear voices through the bulkheads, scared voices, speaking in multiple languages. Marcus activated his translator and immediately picked up fragments of conversation. "The scavengers are getting closer to the core," a voice said in accented standard. "If they breach the laboratory seals." "They won't," another voice replied with forced confidence. "The automated defenses are still active in that section." Marcus and Zara exchanged glances. Whatever was in the core laboratory, the survivors were more afraid of it being discovered than they were of dying. They found the survivors in what had once been the station's main dining hall. 15 beings from 6 different species, all scientists and researchers by the look of their clothing. They had barricaded themselves in with furniture and emergency supplies, creating a makeshift fortress. "Please don't hurt us," called out a Therian scientist as Marcus and Zara entered. "We have nothing of value." "We're here to help," Marcus said, raising his hands peacefully. "We received your distress signal." The leader of the group, a middle-aged human woman with graying hair, stepped forward cautiously. "Dr. Sarah Chen," she introduced herself. "Station director. You're not with the scavengers?" "Definitely not," Zara replied, her Stellari accent unmistakable. "We came through the electromagnetic interference to avoid them." Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she took in Zara's appearance, particularly her damaged wings. "A Stellari navigator. But how did you get through the nebula interference with?" She stopped herself, realizing how rude the question sounded. "Broken wings don't mean a broken mind," Zara said with a slight smile. "Your station is impressive, Dr. Chen. What kind of research were you conducting here?" The director hesitated, exchanging glances with her team. Finally, she spoke. "We were part of the Galactic Unity Project. Our mission was to study how different species could work together, sharing knowledge and abilities to achieve things none of us could accomplish alone." Marcus nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the kind of work the galaxy needs more of." "What happened?" 3 days ago, we received a coded message warning us that a military strike force was coming to shut down the project. Apparently, certain factions in the Galactic Council decided our research was too dangerous, that it might upset the balance of power between species. Dr. Chen led them to a window overlooking the station's core. We activated the emergency protocols and sent out a distress signal, hoping someone would come to help us evacuate our research. Instead, we got scavengers who want to loot everything. Zara peered through the window and gasped. The core laboratory was a marvel of interspecies cooperation. Workstations designed for beings with different physiologies were seamlessly integrated. Aquatic depth dwellers worked alongside crystalline thought shapers, while atmospheric species collaborated in specialized chambers. But most impressive was the central project, a massive holographic display showing star charts from dozens of different perspectives. Each species contributed their unique way of seeing space, creating a three-dimensional map more detailed and accurate than anything Zara had ever seen. "This is incredible," she breathed. "You've combined navigation techniques from every major spacefaring species." "That's just one project," Dr. Chen said proudly. "We've made breakthroughs in medicine, engineering, even art. When species share their unique perspectives instead of competing, the results are revolutionary." Marcus understood immediately why certain factions would want this research destroyed. If species started working together this effectively, it would threaten those who profited from division and conflict. "The scavengers can't reach the core," one of the other scientists, a reptilian saurian, explained. "The automated defenses are designed to protect the research from unauthorized access, but they can't hold forever." "And if the defenses fail?" Marcus asked. "Decades of research will be lost," Dr. Chen replied. "Worse, the techniques we've developed could be weaponized by whoever claims them. The navigation project alone could give any military force unprecedented strategic advantages." Zara studied the holographic display with growing excitement. She could see how her people's understanding of electromagnetic navigation had been combined with Saurian gravitational mapping and crystalline quantum positioning. It was beautiful, elegant, and incredibly powerful. "We need to evacuate the research and the researchers," Marcus decided. "But my ship can't carry everyone, and the scavengers won't let us make multiple trips." "Actually," Zara said slowly, an idea forming in her mind. "What if we didn't have to leave?" Both Marcus and Dr. Chen turned to her with questioning looks. "The scavengers are here for easy salvage," Zara explained. "But what if this station wasn't as helpless as they think? Dr. Chen, your navigation project, does it include defensive applications?" Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with understanding. "The electromagnetic mapping could be used to plot courses through the nebula storms, but it would require someone who understands both the technology and natural stellar navigation. Someone like a Stellari navigator working with human tactical systems," Marcus added, catching on to the plan. "The scavengers think they have us trapped," Zara continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "They're using our perceived weakness against us. But what if our greatest weakness was actually our greatest strength?" For the first time since the crisis began, Dr. Chen smiled. "You want to turn the station into a fortress instead of a victim. I want to show them what happens when different species stop competing and start cooperating," Zara replied. "And I want those scavengers to learn that some things are worth fighting for." The rescue mission was about to become something much more significant. A demonstration of everything the Unity Project stood for, with the station's own research providing the tools for their salvation. Within hours, the research station had transformed from a helpless target into something the galaxy had never seen before. A truly unified defense system operated by multiple species working in perfect harmony. Zara stood at the center of it all, her damaged wings spread for balance as she interfaced with the navigation system. Around her, researchers from different worlds contributed their unique abilities to create a defensive network that no single species could have imagined. "Stellari navigation linked with crystalline quantum calculations," reported Dr. Vex, a being whose body resembled living crystal. "I can predict enemy movement patterns 17 seconds before they occur." "Saurian gravitational mapping integrated with human tactical analysis," added Commander Reeks, his scaled hands dancing over holographic displays. "We can redirect their own momentum against them." Marcus coordinated the defensive positions from the main control center, but he had never seen anything like what was happening around him. Each species brought abilities that complemented the others perfectly. The aquatic depth dwellers could process multiple data streams simultaneously, while the gaseous cloud dancers provided three-dimensional thinking that normal humanoids struggled with. "Contact," announced Dr. Chen from her position at the communications array. "Captain Vex is hailing us. He doesn't sound happy." The view screen flickered to life, showing the scarred face of the scavenger captain. His expression was a mix of anger and confusion. "What kind of tricks are you playing in there?" "Our sensors are reading impossible energy patterns from your station." "No tricks," Marcus replied calmly. "Just some friends working together." "Friends?" Vex laughed harshly. "You've got maybe 20 people in there, and half of them aren't even combat species. Surrender now and we'll let you leave with your lives. Zara stepped into the communication frame, her violet eyes blazing with determination. We decline your generous offer, Captain, but we have a counter-proposal. Vex's expression changed as he took in her appearance. A Stellari? What's a broken bird doing giving orders? This broken bird is about to teach you the difference between being damaged and being defeated, Zara replied. Leave now and we'll forget you were ever here. Stay and discover what happens when the galaxy species stop fighting each other and start fighting together. The captain's laugh turned into a snarl. You're delusional. We have 12 ships and enough firepower to crack this station like an egg. What do you have? Zara smiled, and for the first time since her capture, it was a predator's smile. We have something you've never encountered before. Unity. The communication cut off, and immediately the scavenger fleet began moving into attack formation. But they were thinking like pirates, looking for the quickest way to break their target and claim the loot inside. They're concentrating their fire on what they think are weak points, Marcus observed. Standard pirate tactics. Then let's show them how wrong they are about what constitutes weakness, Zara replied. She closed her eyes and reached out through the navigation system, feeling the electromagnetic currents that flowed through the nebula. The research station's sensors, enhanced by the combined knowledge of 6 species, let her perceive the space around them in ways that defied description. There, she pointed to what looked like empty space on the tactical display. Electromagnetic buildup bearing 27 Mark IV. In 30 seconds, there will be a massive discharge. I don't see anything, Marcus said, checking his instruments. Trust me, Zara replied, and Marcus found that he did completely. All stations, prepare for evasive maneuvers on my mark, Marcus announced to the scavenger fleet, knowing they would ignore the warning. The scavengers opened fire, their energy weapons creating brilliant displays against the station's shields, but their focus on the attack blinded them to what was building in the nebula around them. Now, Zara whispered. A massive electromagnetic storm erupted exactly where she had predicted, catching 3 of the scavenger ships in its grip. Their shields failed instantly, and their navigation systems went dead, leaving them drifting helplessly in the nebula's embrace. Impossible, came Vex's voice over the communication channel. There was no warning, no buildup we could detect. Your sensors can't read what mine can, Zara replied. The nebula isn't your enemy, Captain. It's mine to command. But the demonstration was just the beginning. The remaining scavenger ships regrouped and began a more cautious assault, trying to stay clear of the electromagnetic anomalies while maintaining their attack. That's when the other species began to show what they could contribute. Dr. Vex's crystalline form began to glow as he processed quantum probability matrices. Enemy ship Ironfang 7 will attempt to flank us from bearing 93 Mark 7 in 47 seconds, he announced with mathematical certainty. Commander, Rex manipulated gravitational fields with delicate precision, creating microgravity wells that threw off the attacking ship's targeting systems. Their weapons cannot lock onto us if their platforms are unstable, he rumbled with satisfaction. The Cloud Dancer, existing as a sentient gas within a containment field, expanded its consciousness to encompass multiple battle spaces simultaneously. Through the translation system, its voice came as harmonious chimes. We perceive the enemy's formation from all angles. Their blind spots are our opportunity. The depth dwellers, working in their specialized aquatic chambers, processed vast amounts of tactical data with fluid grace. Their recommendations flowed through the defense network like currents in an ocean. And at the center of it all, Marcus coordinated their efforts with a tactical brilliance that impressed even himself. But he knew the truth. He wasn't commanding this battle. He was conducting it, like the leader of an orchestra, where each musician played a different instrument but all contributed to the same magnificent symphony. The scavenger fleet found itself facing something unprecedented, a defense that adapted faster than they could develop new attack strategies. Every move they made was anticipated. Every weakness they tried to exploit became a trap that turned their own strength against them. This is impossible, Vex snarled over the communications. No single species fights like this. That's right, Marcus replied. No single species could. But we're not a single species, are we? As if to emphasize his point, Zara called out another electromagnetic surge location. Commander Reeks redirected a scavenger ship into it, with a precisely placed gravity well. and Dr. Vex calculated the exact moment when the ship's shields would fail, allowing the depth dwellers to target their weapons with devastating accuracy. The message was clear. When the galaxy's species worked together instead of against each other, they became something greater than the sum of their parts, and any force that threatened that unity would face the full power of what cooperation could achieve. The battle ended not with a final explosion, but with silence. 8 of the 12 scavenger ships drifted powerless in the nebula, their crews rescued by their remaining companions, who had finally realized they were outmatched. Captain Vex's voice came over the communication system one last time, stripped of its earlier arrogance. "This isn't over," he said, but there was defeat in his tone. "Others will come. The Unity Project threatens too many established powers." "Let them come," Zara replied, her voice carrying across the station's communication network. "We'll be ready." As the scavenger fleet limped away into the depths of space, a profound quiet settled over the research station. The scientists looked around at each other with expressions of wonder and disbelief. They had not just survived, they had proven that their life's work was more than academic theory. "The defensive network exceeded all our projections," Dr. Chen said, reviewing the battle data. "The integration between species was seamless, almost intuitive." Marcus nodded, but his attention was focused on Zara. She stood at the navigation console, her hand still resting on the controls, her eyes distant. The electromagnetic patterns of the nebula continued to flow through the station's sensors, and she was still reading them with the same natural grace she had shown throughout the battle. "You did something remarkable out there," he told her quietly. Zara looked down at her damaged wings, then back at the holographic display showing the nebula's energy patterns. "I thought flying was what made me who I was, but today I learned that I was wrong." "What do you mean?" "Flying was just how I moved through space," she explained. "But understanding space, reading its patterns, seeing how everything connects, that's who I am. The wings were never the source of my ability. They were just the tools I used to express it." Dr. Chen approached them, her face glowing with excitement.
"Zara, would you consider staying with the project?"
"What you did today, the way you integrated Stellari navigation with our multi-species network, it's revolutionary. The project isn't safe here," Marcus pointed out. "Vex was right about one thing. Others will come, and they'll come prepared for what they saw today." "Actually," Dr. Chen smiled, "that might not be a problem anymore." The battle created something unexpected. She activated the station's long-range communication array, and immediately the chamber filled with voices speaking dozens of different languages. Messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. "What's happening?" Zara asked. "The electromagnetic pulses from the battle carried our unified defense patterns throughout the nebula. Ships across 3 sectors detected them," Dr. Chen explained. "They've never seen coordination patterns like this before." Marcus listened to the translations as they scrolled across the displays. Messages of support from independent traders, offers of protection from military units tired of enforcing species-based discrimination, requests for information from research institutions across known space. The biggest message came from the Stellari Council. Dr. Chen continued, her voice filled with amazement. "They want to establish an official embassy here." Zara's breath caught. "An embassy? But this is neutral space, not anymore. The Unity Project has been granted autonomous status by the Galactic Council's emergency session. We're now officially recognized as an independent research entity under the protection of all participating species." Marcus understood immediately what this meant. "They can't shut you down anymore. You've become too visible, too important, and too powerful," added Commander Reeks with satisfaction. "Today's battle will be studied in military academies for centuries. No single-species fleet will want to face unified defense tactics like these." But the most significant message was still coming through the translators. Dr. Chen's expression grew solemn as she read it. "The Stellari Council has a special request. They want to offer formal rehabilitation and support to any Stellari whose wings have been damaged in service to their people." Zara stared at the message in disbelief. Rehabilitation? Full medical support, psychological counseling, and most importantly, recognition that wing damage doesn't diminish a Stellari's value to their society, Dr. Chen read aloud. "They're specifically citing today's battle as evidence that damaged wings don't mean damaged worth." Tears formed in Zara's violet eyes. For months she had believed her life was over, that she had become useless to everyone, including herself. But today had proven that her greatest challenges could become her greatest strengths when she found the right partners to work with. "There's more," Marcus said, checking his own communications display. "The Salvage Guild is offering the Unity Project exclusive contracts for recovering lost research and rescuing stranded scientists. Apparently, our little rescue mission today has earned quite a reputation." Zara looked around the station at the beings who had become more than colleagues or allies. They had become something the galaxy desperately needed, proof that different species could not just coexist but thrive together. "So what happens now?" she asked. Dr. Chen gestured toward the ongoing construction visible through the station's viewports. "We expand. The Unity Project is about to become something much larger than a research station. We're going to build a city among the stars where any being can come to contribute their unique abilities to projects that benefit everyone. A city built on cooperation instead of competition," Marcus mused. "I like the sound of that." "And you'll stay?" Dr. Chen asked both of them. "We could use a human salvage specialist who understands the value of broken things, and a Stellari navigator who can guide us through impossible spaces." Marcus looked at Zara, and she looked back at him. The question didn't need to be spoken aloud. They had found something together that neither could achieve alone. The ability to see potential where others saw only problems, to find strength in apparent weakness, to create something beautiful from broken pieces. "We'll stay," Zara said, speaking for both of them, "but not as separate specialists. As partners." "Partners," Marcus agreed, and the word carried the weight of everything they had discovered about each other and themselves. As the research station began its transformation into something unprecedented in galactic history, two beings who had started as owner and property, then become rescuer and rescued, had evolved into something far more significant, equals who made each other stronger. The slave market where their journey began seemed like a lifetime ago, but Zara sometimes thought about that moment when Marcus had chosen to see her worth instead of her damage. He had bought her freedom, but she had taught him that true value wasn't something that could be purchased or sold. It was something that could only be discovered when two beings chose to trust each other with their broken pieces and work together to build something whole. In the depths of the Kepler Nebula, surrounded by electromagnetic storms that would have torn apart any conventional vessel, the Unity Station grew day by day, and at its heart a human and a Stellari continued to prove that the most powerful force in the galaxy wasn't weapons or technology or even individual brilliance. It was the simple, revolutionary act of choosing to see the universe through someone else's eyes while never losing sight of your own.